This is a yam, and today I'm going to try to make a Nigerian recipe for yam pottage called Asaro. This video is a collaboration with my friend Babatunde in Nigeria. You can find his video linked in this card and in the video description. He's going to make, I imagine, a more authentic version of this. I struggled to find some of the ingredients, but we're going to do the best we can under the prevailing conditions. I did manage to get the right kind of yam. This is a yam, it's not a sweet potato. Sweet potatoes are called yams in some places in the world, but this is not one of those. This is a yam, it's a tropical tuber. It's not related to sweet potatoes. Anyway, first thing we need to do is get this yam chopped up and peeled and washed. So this will be my first time cooking yam, but I understand I've got to chop it into sections about, that's what, about an inch and a bit. Yeah. Maybe 3 centimeters thick. And then we're going to peel. Well, when I see Babatunde and people from Nigeria peeling yams, they do it like this, which is a bit of skill. That's interesting. It's got a kind of soapy feel to it. Imagine that's just the starches coming out. It seems to be quite a nice yam, actually. So, anyway. So, yeah. I'm losing my grip on that now, so I'm gonna peel this by doing that on the chopping board, and then we'll chop that into chunks. I think maybe like about that, and then that's going to go straight into a bowl of waiting cold water. Anyway, while I'm doing this, I need to tell you about the adaptations I've had to make for this recipe. So this is a kind of stewed mashed vegetable. I'm deriving the recipe from Chef Lola's Kitchen. I will link to that website and YouTube channel in the description and in this card. It's a really lovely video and very helpful to me because obviously none of these things are very familiar to me. But I couldn't get all of the ingredients. In fact, possibly the only regret I really have since moving down here to rural Dorset is it's not quite as culturally diverse here as it was in the place I moved from. There are a few little shops I found that sell imported foods and cater to the different cultures that live here, but there isn't anything like the kind of breadth and depth of cultural diversity food-wise and population-wise, I suppose, that there was in the place I moved from. So, yeah, if I had got any regrets, it's probably just that this place is a little bit less diverse than where I came from. Anyway, so I nearly had to try to make this recipe without one of the key ingredients. But fortunately, I've managed to find some, and that is red palm oil. You can't really make this dish without the red palm oil. It's considered to be the kind of one of the key flavour components of the dish. So I did manage to find that. One of the other ingredients, which is dried crayfish, could not find for love or money. So we're going to try to approximate that with what I could find. I'm just going to wash this yam now in several changes of water. I'm going to wash that until the water is no longer cloudy. But I think I'll leave that to soak while I figure out one of the substitutes. So could not find dried crayfish at all. I've bought them in the past. I had to get them mail order in the past, and it's like dried little shrimps, very, very, very shrimpy flavour. And I thought, okay, well, let's get some shrimp paste then. Couldn't find shrimp paste either. So we're going to have anchovy paste, this gentleman's relish, very English thing, but that's a really savoury paste made from anchovies. But that doesn't give us any kind of crustacean flavour. So I've got some cold water prawns and tiny little things. And what I'm going to do is actually put these in a pan and kind of dry them out, just toast them almost, so that it enhances that kind of crustacean flavour. That's as close as I can get today. So yeah, these little shrimps are going to go into a dry pan over a very low heat. And the idea is I'm going to try and dry them out and, yeah, almost toast them. Meanwhile, I've got some peppers. I've got Scotch bonnets. I'm probably only going to use one Scotch bonnet because more than that will destroy me. And these are sweet peppers. They may look like hot peppers, but they're actually just a sweet bell pepper. I was going to take the seeds and pith out of that Scotch bonnet, but it's really not worth it. There's not much to take out. And a tomato. There's also an onion. Half of this is going to go in with these things. Okay, right, that lot's going to go in the food processor now. Okay, that looks good. We'll just let that stand there for a moment. Let's check on those prawns. So they have kind of stuck to the pan a little bit, but this seems to be working. They are drying out, going a little bit crispy, and they smell really seafoody, which I think is the important part. Anyway, I'm going to carry on just gently drying those out until they're all crispy. My yam pieces. So I rinsed these in several changes of water until the water came clear. I've got some homemade chicken stock. I made this yesterday just from leftover chicken bones. This is the pepper and tomato paste. There's just going to be a tiny pinch of salt in here because I know that anchovy paste I'm putting in later is really salty. That's had the 10 minutes. Let's just have a look and see how soft this yam is going. It does need further cooking. Well, I can see it's already starting to break up. I think there might be just a little bit too much liquid in here. So, just so we don't end up making a really watery pottage here, I'm just going to decant off some of that liquid. I can always add this back in if more is required. And now it's time to add some other ingredients. So, my fake dried crayfish, my crustaceans, my red palm oil, which is, I had to microwave this to actually make it even pour, but there it is. I'm just going to pop that back in the microwave for a second. Right, okay, so as we were, so the red oil goes in now. So this is palm oil, and I feel it necessary to explain that not all palm oil is the same. And also we're just going to have the rest of the onion in there as well. So not all palm oil is the same. Palm oil is an indigenous crop in Nigeria, and it makes sense for them to eat it. Actually, it's something that grows there. It can be processed locally. It's got very low food miles and very high yield for the land area. So it makes very good sense for palm oil to be cultivated in Nigeria. The palm oil that the internet has taught you to hate is really more about the industrialization of palm oil production and deforestation that's come as a result of that to serve the appetite for fat in the developed world. I think that's probably enough said about that. Anyway, I'm just going to rinse this pan out because some of my shrimpiness is stuck on that pan. So I'm going to tiny bit of water just to loosen that up. Okay, don't want to waste any of that flavour. And there's one more thing to go in, which is this anchovy paste, this patum pepperium, gentleman's relish. This is a anchovy pate, a very, very salty anchovy spread. If you're wondering about what this is like, this has featured, even though this is not strictly a can, this has featured on Weird Stuff in a Can. So there's an episode about that linked in this card and in the video description. But there it is. Doesn't that look appetizing? This is about 20% salt, this stuff. So that is about equivalent to probably a stock cube. So anyway, that's going to go in there as well. That will dissolve and melt in. Another 10 minutes of cooking, then we should be ready to mash. There are a couple more things to go in right before serving. So there's some fish needs to go in. Now, the closest I can really get to anything that's like the smoked fish or the fish that's available to Babatunde is this smoked mackerel. So we'll put some of this in there. Just going to break that up into chunks, I think. We'll have the skin off of it. Kind of pieces like that. And then also I'm going to put some spinach in there. Some washed baby leaf spinach. I'll probably just shred that up a bit. Well, there we are. That's had its 20 minutes of cooking. And yeah, the yam is breaking up now. It's looking pretty well cooked. So I now need to mash this. I think in Nigeria there'd be a mixing stick for this, but I'm going to use a potato masher. But I'm not really going to completely smash it all up because we do want a bit of texture in there still. I think we might need some of that liquid back as well because Yeah, this has gone quite fluffy inside, and these are not like potatoes. So inside, they're a lot more starchy and fluffy than potatoes. So immediately I can see that's going to need some of this liquid back. So I'm going to mash it to a coarse mashed texture. This is not creamy mash. You'll notice there weren't any quantities in the recipe, and that's because the recipe I'm following doesn't give any quantities. It is just a case of some of this and some of that. And so yeah, there's lots of scope for tailoring it to your taste. So I'm not quite sure that I've quite mashed that enough. There are still some biggish floury lumps in there. I think that does need some more liquid. Fortunately, I've still got some chicken stock, so I'll have a bit more stock in there. And then in with the smoked fish. And we're just going to stir that through. And then this goes back on the heat. Just warm it through, just simmer it for a couple more minutes before it's served. Okay, that's had its final bit of cooking now. It smells wonderful. Just the last thing to go in now is that spinach. I think authentically this would be water leaf or something like that, but spinach is a close approximation. So we're just going to stir that in and let the heat wilt the spinach down a little bit. We're going to let that stand for just a couple of minutes and then we'll serve it up. Okay, so here we go. So this is my Asaro Nigerian yam porridge or pottage. Now I can't really resist a little bit of a garnish, I think. Tiny little bit of parsley. I think Chef Lola did say parsley or other herbs would be acceptable. And then a bit of these little pepper rings as well. So here we go. This is my chance to taste something that's hopefully somewhat Nigerian. Asaro. Here we go. That's really good. I don't know how close I really got here, but that's really good. So the yams are a little bit like potato, but not quite. It's got a different kind of chew to it. That is really delicious. And it's interesting how all those fish and seafood flavours have kind of infused through it. All of these other things we've added to it, the red oil, the Scotch bonnet, the tomatoes, the peppers, the fish, the shrimp, the onions, has made it into a... You might think that kind of mashed yams would be a side dish, but this is a main course now. I'm glad I didn't put the other Scotch bonnet in. This is somewhere below my sort of tolerance limit for hot spices. But it's nice. It's a nice little kick of heat to it without being painful to eat. I imagine Babatunde might have put more than one in his. That's really good. I am thoroughly impressed with that. And that's the first time I've eaten yams, but I feel like it won't be the last. Don't forget to check out Babatunde's side of the collaboration in his video. I'm going to go and sit down now, eat the rest of this, and maybe come back for seconds. So I hope that's been interesting. I've certainly really enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.